let's go back to the beginning, and I'll start from the beginning. Okay. So, I went to the DC protests, right? If you want to see my footage of that, it is on my channel. You can see the VOD. I might upload it to YouTube since this is an event of historical importance. Now, I took the train to the DC protest from my home in Prince George's County. I've lived in the DMV my whole life. I was born and raised here. My mother lived in DC and died in DC. This is part of my community. So, nope. Yeah, Torian, it was pretty all over the place. No worries, mate. I got home. I got some food in my stomach. So, I got on the train and started to go there. And right away, when I was on the train, I noticed something was different. And that thing that was different from all the other events was the fact that usually when these protests happen, I don't see a lot of people on the metro going to the protests unless they're from the community. But I saw a lot of people on the metro wearing Trump hats, wearing Trump shirts, flying Trump flags, who are very obviously from out of state. I could tell from accents. I could tell from like some of the stuff on their bags, like Indiana stuff on their bags, or Michigan, or other insignias they have on their stuff. And so what I saw was a lot of people taking the metro, just like me, to go there, which means that there was people who reserved hotels outside of DC and planned to metro inside, meaning that a lot of the DC hotels have already reserved all the way to capacity, or maybe they're not working with them, or maybe there was so many that some had to reserve DCs outside of DC. Reserve hotels outside of DC. So it was of note that there were so many Trump supporters taking the metro. So I go there, and what am I wearing? I can show you right now. I was wearing this. I get out of the metro, and I'm wearing my Biden-Harris gear, my I voted sticker, my Christian cross, and my vote your ass off bin. On my back, you should be able to see. Let me pull that up. The Biden-Harris thing as well. So if you saw me from the back or the front, you saw very clearly that I was somebody who voted for Joe Biden in this election. Later, as it got colder, I got this as well, which I think kind of gave me some cover a little bit, but also was mostly just because I was cold. So I get out of the train and I start walking, and immediately I see MAGA people everywhere. There's a lot of Trump hats and not a lot of masks, just like the last event I was at DC, where there was a lot of Trump people. There was not a lot of masks. I would say about 30% of the Trump people wearing masks, 40 at most. The majority were not wearing masks and were not taking a bare minimum COVID precautions. No hand sanitizer, no masks, not a lot of social distancing, just a lot of people bunched up in groups and heading towards whatever direction. And so the first thing I do is I take out my phone, I enter in the GPS, and I head towards BLM Plaza. And the reason I went to BLM Plaza first is BLM Plaza, due to the name BLM Plaza, and due to the location of it, it is usually a hot spot for interactions between more lefty people like myself and Trump supporters. So I go there with my live streaming phone and I start live streaming. And I start recording interactions. I talk to a few people. Some people recognize me from Twitch. I give them a fist bump.
Sans_an original $20. Thanks for being on the group and covering such an important event. Hope more people start supporting you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the $20, man. Thank you so much. Really. So, I record a few people with signs, ask them why they're here. I talk to a few people. Some people see me in the Biden gear and call me a communist. This one guy was passing me and just like laughed at me on instantly seeing I was a Biden supporter, being real polite, being cordial, as they would And so after just talking to a few people, there wasn't really much going down at BLM Plaza. Just maybe every once in a while there'd be two people yelling at each other, but nothing of note was really going down at BLM Plaza. And the reason why was they put a lot of barriers there. They had cops there ready. They had cars stopping like inflow of a lot of people. BLM Plaza, the vast majority of it was already gated and divided off by police officers because they know that this can be a hot spot due to the name and how both left-wing and right-wing people usually come here to interact and yell at each other, and it can start scuffles. So this was also the place I saw there was vandalism last time by some right-wing people that came in and vandalized BLM monuments that were put up to people who were killed due to police violence. And so after that, I start walking around, and I kind of like Assassin's Creed, like overhear some conversations, do some eavesdropping, and I hear that there might be stuff going down near the Washington Monument. And so I start heading towards the Washington Monument. I'm walking by. As I walk by, the crowd gets more full as more and more Trump supporters are visible to me as they more and more keep passing me, and I keep having little tiny interactions here, but nothing of note. And eventually I hear from the grapevine, and I also hear from chat, that something's going down at the Capitol building, and that everything's going down at the Capitol building, and the march is ending at the Capitol building. So I take a left instead of a right, which would have gotten me to the Washington Capitol, and I start heading towards the Capitol building. All of this being live streamed. And there were so many people that my stream started to get choppy. It started to its quality started to go down, and I had to keep moving away from the crowds, and also for two reasons: to social distance and to keep my stream high quality. And I started going in that direction. Then I see in chat, and I start hearing, yo, I think they're rushing the Capitol building. Which, to be honest, when I first hear, I didn't believe it, because, you know, you always hear like stuff when something happens at a protest, it can go down the grapevine, and it could have been, oh, that guy stepped on a cop's foot, and by the time it gets to you, it's that guy punched the cop in the face. That's how information can travel sometimes in protests. But I kept getting that consistent story. People linked it in chat, and also mods in my chat said, yes, that is what currently is going on. And so, of course, because I was already headed there, chat wanted me to go there, I wanted to go there to see what was going on, and I wanted to document what was going on. And of course, I wanted to represent my gear. I kept going in that direction. But at this point, there's so many MAGA people to so many Trump people that they're like shoulder to shoulder, right? They're real close. And so at this point, I move away from the group, and I start taking back streets, alleyways, and other ways to get to the Capitol building. Mostly so I could social distance, and so I'm not super close to these people. Because I don't want to be super close to these people for a bunch of reasons. If I get stuck in the middle and somebody decides to punch me because they're really not happy today that Biden's going to be the next president of the United States, definitely after the two Georgia senators, which thankfully we went down and canvassed for in Georgia, are getting sworn in, and we have the majority, maybe they're just really not happy and swing at me, and I'd rather not be smack dab in the middle of a Trump and MAGA people if that was to happen. That's the first thing. And the second reason is it'd be very difficult to social distance. And so, I social distance, take the back streets, and keep going up. And as I keep going up, the reports I'm receiving continue to change. At first it was, oh, they're charging the Capitol building. Oh, they've made it, aren't you? Their premises. They have pushed past the first police line. They are now pushing back and forth with police. And then by the time I get there, they're at the door of the Capitol building. And then you can see the full scale of how many people are there, because I went around through the Department of Labor, then through a back alley, then I went to the monument to William Taft, which gave me some decent leverage over the area in front of the Capitol building and the Capitol building itself. I saw Nick Fuentes' group's America First flags, I saw Kyrgyzstan flags, I saw a lot of South Vietnamese flags, I saw American flags, I saw Trump flags, I saw a lot of different flags. and this huge wave of people. And I stand next to these two people who are there, who are Trump supporters, and we engage in some dialogue. We have actually a somewhat polite discussion about issues and how we both view the situation. And as this is all going on, we hear loud bangs. We see smoke rising, multicolored smoke rising from the Capitol grounds. We see more and more people flooding in as the cops can't even handle the people that are already there. Ambulances start going off a lot. And then there's this report that starts flooding into me. They've broken through. They're in the building. I think it was Rage Pulp and some other chatters who kept telling me, they're in the building, they're in the building, they're in the building. Which I needed to wait and see for somebody else to give that report. And the person next to me said they just got a text from their mom saying, yes, they're in the building. And so they're in the building. We see multicolored smoke from whatever. I don't know what it's from. Maybe some tool, something coming up from the building. We hear loud banging. We hear cheers as people go into it. There's people all over the lawn, all over the building, standing on ledges and such. There's this huge wave of Trump people from different factions. Nicholas Fuentes' group, the Groypers, and the South Vietnamese diaspora, and I'm sure the Proud Boys were there too. This huge wave of people. So they're starting to flood in, and there's still more people flooding towards the Capitol building. And I'm trying to get all of this on footage. I'm trying to live stream all of this. And so as that starts to happen, finally, as this situation continues to devolve and continues to get worse, as the cops try to keep, I guess, some modicum or some minuscule amount of order intact, the cops start to flood in. Unmarked cop cars, police vans, these like riot gear is flooding the streets. I see people just straight up assault rifles come in full on military gear. Just every single type of like service personnel possible is just flooding into this area. It's car after car after car after car after car. Some of them are armored, some of them are unarmored, some of them are marked, some of them are unmarked. You'll see tons of cops in riot gear. You see tons of street cops, some of DC Metropolitan Police. You see some National Guard. You see every type of service personnel you can think of was there. You see fire trucks, you see ambulances, everything is flooding towards them as I guess they realized it did not have enough personnel to deal with the situation that was evolving. And this is when I want to talk about the type of people that I saw. I already talked how many of them weren't wearing masks. A lot of them, while I was on the train, I saw this. While I was there, I saw this. I would say a decent portion of them were wearing helmets. A lot of them were kind of geared up in like military gear, in camo, and you know the gist. You know, some of them had well, what's the word? Like gear on their legs. Some of them were completely geared up with pads everywhere, as if they were ready to, you know, they were ready for something. A lot of people in military gear. A lot of people. Just generally just prepared for something to go down. And those were with the Groypers, with the people in suits, with the South Vietnamese diaspora, with all these different people that we're representing here.
A curd is a curd.
Thanks for all the subs. I got it. How do I want to turn off the sub emote so the VOD doesn't have the notification keep going off. I'll deal with it later.
Is a curd.
Fuck, it's gonna. You know, I'll just turn off You know what? I'll turn off desktop audio so we won't have to deal with it. There we go. So, at this point, I decide. You guys can't hear that, right? I just got another notification. Let me just check with chat. Do you guys not hear that? No, guys. Thank you, Hey Duns, for subbing. Nope. Okay, then you can sub freely now. Hey Duns, thank you so much for the subs. I really appreciate it. I really do. Now that I've muted it, I can hear it, but you guys can't, so it's fine. Sub to your heart's content, okay? Donate to your heart's content. So at this point, I start moving because I wanted to get a closer view of what was going on, and my buddies that I was chatting to and having some dialogue with had left. They were like, hey, even if you're on the other side, nice talking to you, stay safe. And I keep moving towards them, and I get closer towards the gated area, and I'm starting to stream this area a little bit, but then I check, oh snap, my battery's almost dead. And so I get my power block. Do I have this near me? I don't have it near me, but I get my power block and I plug it in, and I realize that I'm losing power faster than I'm gaining power. And so I'm like, quickly, I just say to stream guys, I gotta go, I gotta head out, I'm sorry. And I end stream. And so that's the last anybody on Twitch who was just watching me on Twitch saw of me. Was just like, well, okay guys, gotta get later. There's the Capitol building. Oh, do you see the multicolored smoke and all the cops with machine guns rolling up? Don't see you later, bye. Boom. So probably wasn't the best place to just leave it off, but I was running out of power. At that point, I put my phone in my pocket. I start to charge again, and then I take it out and I start taking pictures and post to Twitter. And this is when I can actually start showing you. So if you want to see the full events of what I talked about up to this point, it should be on my Twitch. But let's go to my Twitter so we can look at what I started to document past that point, because that's when a lot of the really interesting stuff occurred. So we'll just go tweet by tweet, and I'll talk about what I saw as stuff occurred. So this is the picture of the people coming in, the service personnel, the Montgomery County Police. So this is Maryland sending in their police to help out. I saw the mayor of Baltimore offer DC forces if they needed it. People were just sending everything they possibly could to get cops and personnel there possible. Obviously, you see they're geared up, ready for something to go down. They have some pretty powerful equipment there to get the job done. And what I noticed from the interactions on the ground as I was outside the Capitol building, and we saw these armored cars, unmarked police cars and police cars surround it, was that the interactions that people were having with police was very, very strange and something I'm not used to. Trump supporters started yelling traitors at the cops and National Guards, the DC Metropolitan Police and the Maryland Police, like the Montgomery County Police that were there. And it was this weird dynamic the whole night where one person would pass by and they would say, "Thank you for your service. You're great, we love you," and keep walking. The next person will walk by, "You're traitors, you took an oath, you're an oath breaker, you're this, you're that. You know what we do to traitors? We execute them. You're scum, you're disgusting. We were on your side all the way, and now this is what you do to us." As if they think that it's supposed to work that the police just side with your side politically. And they're only supposed to like beat up the other side, but then when they show any force towards you, they're oath breakers, they're traitors, they're disgusting. They can mace and beat or do whatever to BLM or the Antifers, but if they show a modicum of force towards you, they're oath breakers, they're traitors, and what's the only thing that can happen to traitors? Execution. And of course, due to the wide difference on how people were interacting with police. In one instance, you hear someone say, "Thank you for your service," and the next it'll be, "You're a bunch of traitors." And these people do overlap, and someone will say, "You're a traitor," and someone will say, "Don't say that to the cops, they're just doing their jobs." Well, they shouldn't be. Well, they took an oath to defend, and they're not doing it by here. They should go in there and arrest the real criminals, which are the politicians, which, cute sentiment, right? But currently, the criminals that are most evident and of most threat to everybody are the people charging the Capitol building and breaking into the Capitol building. So at this point, I get reports that like Nick Fuentes and Baked Alaska are actually inside the building and streaming from within the building, which, interesting to say the least. I saw the America First flag, so I'm not surprised that Nick Fuentes, Booger Nick, is actually in the building. They are breaking into different congressmen and senators' room, and they broke in so quickly that there were still actually emails open on like Nancy Pelosi's desk. So let's go to the next one. I heard a person say Sig Heil. It was just one. I only heard one Sig Heil the whole night. So I just wanted to, but of course it stuck out to me, so I wanted to post it out there. Pretty self-evident what's wrong with this, you know, like blatant racism. And he said it towards a cop, so maybe it was like waiting for them to say Sig Heil back, or maybe it was like meant as kind of just a signal towards them. I have no clue. But they just yelled, a guy yelled Sig Heil at the police. The same police I showed earlier in the picture. Here's some more pictures at the cops and guards that are getting yelled at, and you can see them here gearing up for what they were getting prepared for. You know, there they are getting the equipment, putting on their riot gear, putting on some body armor, putting on pads and equipment. There's them getting shields and just gearing up generally. They had some pretty like heavy-duty firearms as well. Okay, so you can see that obviously after they charged the Capitol building, the police took the hint that maybe they weren't prepared for this much of an event to occur for these many people, and they started sending cops out. And a lot more en masse, because obviously we saw the Montgomery County Police, there's the DC Metropolitan Police, I think there was some DC, there were some National Guard troops at the ready beforehand, but I remember it only being like 240, not nearly enough. And these cops don't need to just cover the Capitol building. The cops need to cover the Capitol building. They need to cover the streets leading up to the Capitol building. They need to cover BLM Plaza. They got to cover multiple blocks. They got to cover stuff all over the city. So obviously, they needed a lot more cops than they had. Let's go to the next event that occurred, that I documented. This is me getting near the Capitol. You can see here these long, like, kind of wave of Trump supporters here, kind of coming around the side of the building here. What you can't see here, and what on the right with the trees are blocking, is that there's kind of like an elevated level where there's also more Trump supporters there near the entrance, and I think that's actually where they broke into the Capitol building, was on that side. I saw a Hillary for Firing Squad shirt. Now, that shirt, it just stood out to me, obviously, because these are the people coming out here to, quote-unquote, defend democracy, and they're still calling for the execution of a political opponent from 4 years ago, from a different election. Found that extremely interesting, as they are out here to defend the integrity of democracy, while also, like, signaling the execution of the opponents. Now, the reason, not only did I call this specific instance out because of the very disgusting nature of the shirt, but I also wanted to call this specific instance out because this was a theme throughout the night. This idea that these people, it could be the cops, it could be me, who's doing that mean a lot, it could be the politicians, it could be anyone. They're the traitors. And remember, everyone, what's the penalty for treason? And sometimes people would spell it out very directly, execution. Other times they would just say, what's the penalty for treason? And it was this kind of constant call for kind of the guillotine to come to their opponents. Which, of course, is funny when you think about the fact that these are the people that were here to supposedly, again, defend democracy and defend the integrity of democracy. I saw some QAnon merch. I didn't see a lot. I saw one person with a pretty big QAnon flag being flown around. Here's another picture of the crowd as I got a little bit closer. Again, you can see that I'm trying my best to keep my distance here. And that's actually the elevated level I was talking about. And that's the area where I believe they actually broke into the building. You can see a Gadsden flag there. And you can see some people standing on the ledge. There's so many people there that a lot of those people aren't just standing on the ledge because, hey, this gives me a good view. Some of those people are standing on the ledge because there's just so many people down there that the only way they could maybe socially distance or just be up there is by standing on the ledge because there's so many people. Hey, did somebody just donate? Hey, well, whoever donated, I appreciate it, or whoever hosted. This is something that gets me. These people, this giant crowd, and Tori News, thanks for the host with 42. This crowd comes here into this community that they're not a part of, while also there's this large hatred of the outside agitator that is BLM or Antifa, right? They come into the community to protect the integrity of democracy and to stop the traitors, and then they end up charging the Capitol building and flying Confederate flags. Not only did they fly the Confederate flags outside the building, they ended up bringing the Confederate flags inside the building and flying them in front of the cops next to them, next to the police officers and in the politicians' offices. I'm sorry to say, but you're 150 years late with those Confederate flags, okay? That war has been over for a decent amount of time, buddy. It's been long gone. And you're 150 years late, and you're better fit on a field on a Sunday afternoon doing a reenactment with a bunch of other older individuals who are interested in Civil War history, okay? You are not set up to come to DC and do this kind of botched, kind of messy, kind of bootleg coup attempt, okay? You're 150 years late with the flag, and you're 150 years late with taking over the United States government, okay? You can hear the chants of USA. This is strange, these chants of USA, and I'll tell you in a second why. So the reason why I find the chants of USA strange is sometimes they would happen just spontaneously, and other times there would be like a loud bang, or something would happen, someone would get into somebody else's office, some door would get knocked out, something would happen. Oh, the audio was off. You're right. You're right, the audio was off. So the thing that's strange about this is sometimes it would happen spontaneously, the USA chants, and other times there would be like a loud bang, and something would have happened. Like maybe there was just a big bang from something being knocked down, or somebody would get through the doors, or somebody would say something extremely inflammatory, and there'd be a loud USA chant after, or an extremely loud cheer. But other times it just happens spontaneously. But it also shows like how many people were there with how loud the chanting really was. It's kind of hard to see here, but you can see that kind of blurriness in the middle of the photo. I believe that was tear gas. I was not there in front of the tear gas when it was deployed, but I do believe that was tear gas being deployed at that time. But I don't know, maybe it was 10 people in a semicircle doing vape pens. It could have been. But you can see, by the way, how many people here are wearing masks. I think I see one. I see another one on the right. But not a lot of people here are wearing masks. Not a lot at all. Again, I think maybe 30% to at most 40% of the people here were wearing masks. And you can see they're not exactly, well, socially distancing very much. Here's an update from me on the ground. So let's hear what past Dylan had to say.
I'm safe. Everything's fine at the moment. I've seen some QAnon flags, Confederate flags. I think I saw the AF America First thing, which I think might be associated with Nick Fuentes. I think someone told me it was.
It is associated with Nick Fuentes.
I'm not sure for sure. There's Trump flags. I'm currently outside the Capitol, and I'm wearing, of course, my lovely Biden-Harris merch, and I'm sure that'll go over well with the vast majority of people here because they believe in democracy. I believe in democracy. I believe in polite dialogue, so I'm sure I'll be fine. And we both also, we can unite through our united faith, So I'm sure it'll go good. Everything's good at the moment. Love you all. I'm staying 6 feet apart too.
Okay, so there's a little update. Me going out there, I'm here to have a decent dialogue. I'm here because I love democracy, and I'm sure all these people here who are here because they are worried about the integrity of democracy also really, really love democracy. So I'm coming here in my Biden-Harris merch to see how people interact with me, somebody who actually lives here and disagrees with them. and we can go up. These individuals right here, these guys, they were kind of standing next to me for like a good 30 minutes. I think it was the guy in the brown, or one of the dudes with the black masks, pointed me out like, look, there's a Biden supporter. You know what separates us from them? He would attack us at their rally. And I heard that a few times during the night. And I think to myself, every time I hear that, like, what does that mean? My rally? Number one, if he's talking about a Biden rally, there are no Biden rallies, number one, because he's worried about COVID. And number two, for the few rallies there are, they're like in cars. And obviously you can't like stab someone through a car. And number three, let's say it wasn't. I actually find it a hard time to believe that there would be this huge beat down at the Biden rally when he's running on the message of unity for the entirety of the election. And that's his big speaking point. Anyway, but I kept getting pointed out. I think a few recognized me, which did concern me. And I think a few just saw me with the Biden gear, was like, oh my God, look, the Biden person, right? We're just trying to point me out. You know, I guess I did stick out like a sore thumb with my long hair, my mask, and my Biden gear a little bit. Maybe just a tiny bit. I saw a Kekistan flag. This gave me a renewed confidence in my safety. People are not going to be ballsy enough to punch me in the face if they have stale memes. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. This was an extremely strange interaction. So I'm standing there just kind of looking around. I have my hands in my pockets because my hands were super cold. It was hard at times to move my fingers. I really should have invested in gloves. And I was sitting there. I was looking around the Capitol building, and this person walks up to me, and she's like, trying to get me to take a picture of her sign. And she's like, what side do you want? And I said, I just pick one at random. I picked that sign. And she says, you know, remember this message. And I read it, and what I read is the message: all that is hidden in darkness will come to light, Luke 8:17, followed by a different statement: treason is punishable by death. I don't know if she was suggesting that I was being treasonous for my Biden stuff, for my Biden gear, and therefore I am punishable. Treason is punishable by death, so you better look out. Take this picture. Remember this. Be careful. Remind yourself of your message later. But again, the calling for the execution of your political opponents, pretty concerning. Definitely when you consider just upholding the integrity of our democracy and saying that the person who won the election should be certified as the next president of the United States, that's treason. Rejecting that, well then I guess I'm the biggest traitor on the planet. And again, this is all happening, these treason claims being thrown at me and thrown at Pence and thrown at the legislature and thrown around everyone. Yeah, so basically, blah, blah, blah. Our enemies are treasonous. Need to execute them, all while they're literally rushing the Capitol building, fueled by ridiculous claims of election fraud, of widespread election fraud, and that this election was fraudulent, and they break in flying Confederate flags. This was really interesting. So this was up to a point where the tensions between the police and the Trump supporters were escalating. Multiple times, there was people yelling at the cops like, man, we supported you and now you don't support us. We supported you and man, you just don't support us. What the fuck, man? I can't believe that. And eventually, when there were more cops trying to get into the Capitol building, there was actually individuals who just said straight up like, nope, stop them. Hold the line was what they eventually ended up saying. There was a Trump supporter trying to rally people to stop cops from coming into the Capitol building to like kind of restore law and order. By the way, these are the people who support the law and order president. But immediately when those laws and those orders don't line up with them being allowed to just charge government buildings at will, then that poof, it goes away. When they can't just break the windows of the legislature, which they did end up doing, apparently the law and order needs to slowly fade away. Here you can see some cops that are getting around the Capitol building. Cops are finally starting to arrive to try to start maintaining some semblance of what is considered order. Shortly after this, a guy would come up to these cops with a microphone and yell at them how they're traitors and evil, and that we supported you, we supported you, and once we're gone, there will be no one left to support you. Which was a really strange interaction back and forth with the cops. This guy stole the speaker. I mean, this is a pretty clear picture. A pretty clear picture. I mean, there has to be some follow-up with this. If there's this clear of a picture of this guy committing the crime, he's waving towards the camera, literally carrying it away. I don't know if this is really that smart. Gonna be honest. And I retweeted what Supreme said. I found it very funny. If your protest looks like an amusement park souvenir photo, you're probably not oppressed. So this was back to what I was talking about earlier, how Trump supporters can't decide to yell traitor at the cops or thank them from the service. This happened all night long. Shortly after that, though, I heard this discussion. I kind of eavesdropped on this discussion where somebody was talking about the militia's needs to rise up. That, I mean, I guess after successfully charging the Capitol building, the idea of militias rising up and overthrowing the government isn't that far off. Isn't that that much outside of your realm of consideration of things that are possible due to how piss poor the early police presence was. But yeah, this kind of weird call in the middle of it for revolution. They just casually discussed it as people were moving into the Capitol building. Now, this was an interaction I wanted to talk about because it was very strange. So as you can see, I'm wearing, the cross here. I got the American flag, and I have already showed you guys that I'm wearing Biden merch. So I have this interaction where I was called out by a few people who saw I was wearing Biden merch, and he basically says, like, you're a dumbass, you're a traitor, you're this and that. And the reason why was he asked, and I said, yeah, I voted for Biden, I'm a Biden guy. Well, actually, let me start at the beginning. Originally, someone yelled at me, Biden voters suck. And I turned to him, I go like this, and I go back to my phone because I was tweeting the previous tweet out, and I didn't really care. And then it comes up, then like a few of them kind of get closer to me, and so obviously I have to pay attention. They're about to break my 6 feet, right? And they start talking to me, and I'm like, I'm here because it's a free country. I'm allowed to do whatever the hell I want. And he started saying like, oh, you voted for Biden, you're a traitor, you're a dumbass, you're this and that, da 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 da. And when he's in the middle of yelling all that, I said, you're really showing me your Christian values, aren't you? And he kind of freezes it in pace after I say that, and it kind of feels like his mind went on buffering mode for like 5 seconds, because he didn't know what to say back. Because so far, all he did was go up to me because I was wearing a shirt, which he didn't disagree with, and he just started yelling all this stuff at me. And then he goes back into calling me all these names. It's like, it's a free country. All I did was vote for another guy. And he said, yeah, you're treasonous. You're a traitor. And then he got really, really mad when he noticed my scarf was an American flag. The concept that I could be wearing an American flag scarf while also my Biden merch, the fact that I could be patriotic. And he said, you're not a patriot. You're not a patriot. That's disgusting. You can't wear that scarf and you can't wear that merch together. And he was so disgusted by the fact that I wore these two things together. Mind you, that Biden was the person who got the popular vote and the electoral college vote and won the last election, showing that the vast majority of Americans would rather have Biden as president than Trump. So really, I think when we're really talking about this here, me wearing that with Biden, I'm just expressing what the vast majority of Americans believe. And somehow that's unpatriotic? Does he really think that the vast majority of Americans who chose to vote differently than him are all traitors? They're all dumbasses? They all just hate America? Apparently. But of course, the concept from his perspective would be the vast majority did not vote for Biden. They actually voted for Trump, but it was all election fraud. That would be the response. But it was very interesting to see this guy just come up to me and call me a traitor for voting differently than him, a dumbass for voting differently from him, and then get so outraged at the concept that I could possibly own an American flag scarf and wear it while I'm also wearing Biden merch. Basically, I told him it's a free country. I'm here. I'm not bothering anybody. I'm not hurting anybody. And everything's okay. It's A-okay. And he said, and somebody eventually said to me back, well, we wouldn't be good at one of your rallies. And I'm like, Biden doesn't even hold rallies. And from there, they basically left me alone. At this point, you can see I was talking about how the American First people were there. There's the American First flag with the AF. The Groypers, Nick Fuentes' people, arrived. Usually the people who are flying this flag were a little younger. A very loud bang just went off. I actually still don't know what it was. I was just standing in that same spot, and there was this big boom. And that was it. And so I saw some movement, but I didn't know what happened. It was just a very loud explosion. And about 30 minutes later, there would be more as flashbangs and smoke grenades are kind of thrown in our direction, and windows start to get broken. But I'll talk about that in a little bit once we get to there. But a very loud bang went off. It was identifiable because at that point I kind of backed up a little bit from the building because a little bit of chaos started to ensue. Now, I don't want to only highlight all the bad things that happened to me. There was one person who walked up to me and had a lovely interaction with me. He walked up to me and said, hey, we're on opposite sides, but you have the right to vote for who you want to. Stay safe. We did the elbow. He tried to go for a fist bump. I did the elbow thing. He was very nice. And it was a positive interaction with a Trump supporter. There you go. So no one can ever say I only highlighted the bad stuff. There's a wide peephole moment, okay? Then somebody walked by me after I had that interaction, very shortly after. A guy walked up by me with a very formal looking American flag that was like the pole was made of wood and metal claps together, and it had the kind of the little strings at the ends of it, and he said he repatriated it. And what I realized is this guy just stole an American flag from inside the Capitol building and was just walking around the premises with this flag, just waving it around. Of this flag he just stole from the Capitol building. And again, these are people who are supporting the president of supposed law and order. He took it back for the people. At this point is what I talked about. I heard glass shatter, which I remember earlier hearing that congressmen and women were warned to stay away from the windows. So I think maybe somebody threw something and broke a window, or some people were climbing up the sides of the building, so somebody might have came up with like a rock and just smashed the side of a window. But I heard glass shatter, and someone did break a window shortly after the person with the stolen flag passed me. Right after the window was broken, I guess the cops saw a window was broken, saw glass was getting shattered, and at that point thought they needed to, install some of that law and order that the president talks about so much. And I heard a big bang, and then I saw something get thrown and land right next to me. And so I started running. I just ran. Because obviously if I hear a bang and I see smoke rising as people turn away and start coughing, I think I'm getting the signal of, maybe this is not a good place to be. And I start running in the other direction as flashbangs and smoke grenades and tear gas I believe it was tear gas, not smoke grenades. So I keep getting smoke grenades and tear gas mixed up, as tear gas is deployed. And I run in the other direction. After I run in the other direction, I get away from the crowd and I kind of get near the media area. And this is basically the last part of my adventure. I get into the media area, and I think, oh, by the way, there were helicopters in the sky. Just wanted to bring that up. This is where I was, right? This is where the media crew was. So get a good look at this. So memorize this picture in your head, because you're gonna not see it in a second. This guy right in front of me, you can kind of see him. He's the most prominent person with the black jacket in the front and the khaki pants. This guy would, in a little bit, will be like talking into the camera on screen, and they're just doing media. They're just like covering the event generally. You know, it's just a media corner. You can see that they're divided by these little gates in front of them, meant to keep them away from the protesters. Now, while I'm sitting over here, this guy, which we're about to take a look at, came up. This guy right here, who you can see waving the American flag, he came up, yelled at the reporters to take off their masks and be free. I'm sorry for the phony camera angle. I know it's terrible. He said, take off your mask and be free. And while the guy is trying to cover the event, and then he uses the flag to try to stop the guy from getting any decent camera shots. And while the guy is talking about the events that are transpiring in DC, he uses the term rioters to refer to the people that are inside the building. And this guy in the red shirt is super, super offended by that. He really didn't like that. And so he walked up to the guy and said, they're not rioters, fake news, you're lying, how dare you lie about it, they're not rioters, they're peaceful individuals, da 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 da, how dare you, how dare. And somebody eventually came by, was like, dude, you gotta move, you can't do this, man, like, leave them alone, I get it, but it's bad, I hate the fake news too, but you gotta move back. But they're lying about the news. And eventually he kind of backs off a little bit. But shortly after, someone else came by and used, I can't read the next tweet for TOS reasons, but basically, some other people come by, look at the reporters, and start yelling the F slur at them, and they see me in the Biden gear, and they start yelling the F slur at me. Which, you know, as a bisexual individual, it was not cool to have someone just yell the F slur at me because I voted differently than them. Just gonna throw that out there. I think that was pretty uncool of them to do that. And of course, throw it at the reporters as well. And they were really digging into the homophobia. It was like, yeah, you really look like you enjoy dick. Fuck you, you fucking F slur, da 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 da. It was pretty gross. This is when shit started to actually go down. They started throwing, a crowd started to form. After some people yelled the F slur at them, I guess some people saw there was some commotion, came over, saw there was news, didn't see who they were, and they just started throwing stuff at them. I saw water bottles being thrown, people came up with water, sprayed them on them. I saw some black objects get thrown, a few. I didn't really get to see what they were. Then they get up to the gate and they start shaking the gate. They start attempting to push over the gate, and a lot of the reporters start fleeing. As you can see here, I'll try to unmute here so you guys can hear the audio. But the reporters start fleeing, and I hear that after the fact, individuals damaged the news equipment, and that some news equipment was left here. But basically, the reporters had to flee the area, as you can see from this footage, as they start getting over the dividing line. And I think you can hear someone in the back like say that they look like Antifa, and it was like pointing at me, right? So that's when I start to get even more than before, because they dragged attention to me and them by calling off the F slurs. So I was getting attention. People were like calling me Antifa for just having like a Biden like jacket on. Somebody eventually walked up to me while I was wearing the Biden jacket and was like, why don't you like Trump? And I said, well, I don't like the war he is supporting in Yemen. That's pretty bad. I think that's pretty bad. And he was very angry at my answer there. And then his wife came over and looked me dead in the eyes. She was very not I mean, they were very upset at the fact that I did not like Trump off the basis of his support for the war in Yemen and me wanting to end it. Like, they thought it was a ridiculous reason not to support Trump. At this point, it was falling apart fast. They don't seem to like me leaving out. Now, what I'm saying here is that, the F slur is being thrown at me. Some people are interrogating me about why I don't like Trump. They're asking me why I like Biden. They're pointing me out like that looks like an Antifa. And if they think I'm Antifa, I know they're not going to treat me well. Because I see how they're treating the cops, how they're treating the news. If they think I'm Antifa, which of course Trump has gone on this long spree about how Antifa's a terrorist organization, then I think I'm going to get some bad treatment. And so at that point, I saw it all breaking down. They were pushing back on the reporters' line. They were pushing the reporters back. The reporters were fleeing. There was more commotion as the cops were scuffling with the groups of Trump's supporters near the Capitol. And I was cold. I was cold as all hell. So at this point, I decided to leave. And at this point, I head out. I head towards Union Station, get on some trains, and head out. And I'm going to be honest, as a Christian, did not feel a lot of those good Christian values tonight. And so that was basically the entirety of my experience in DC. Oh, there was one thing. Someone did spit at me, which was not fun too. While somebody was walking by, somebody did spit at me. Of course, every once in a while, someone would call me a communist or something else, just for wearing just for wearing a hoodie for the person who is currently president-elect